I never imagined a medieval duel could unveil a heart-stopping history of love and loss. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heartbeat raced as the clang of swords filled the air, sharp and metallic, echoing through the crowd gathered at the arena. I stood there, trembling, clutching the cold stone wall like it was my only anchor. The sun beat down relentlessly, casting a spotlight on the duelists, each one a knight draped in armor that gleamed like promises unfulfilled. It was Sir Allaric against Lord Cedric. Both were men who had once shared laughter over flagons of ale, brothers in arms turned enemies by a woman's shattered heart. My heart sank into my stomach at the thought of Allaric, the radiant maiden whose love had ignited this feud. She stood just beyond the ring, her eyes wide and glistening. I could see tears pooling at the edges, but she didn't look away. I felt a tightness in my chest. Did she love one of them? Or was she mourning the bond of brotherhood torn apart? I felt the weight of her sorrow in the air, thick and suffocating. The crowd roared, their shouts mingling with the clash of metal. My hands shook. I wanted to scream, to tell them to stop, to remember their shared memories rather than spill blood over jealousy and betrayal. But I was frozen, the sight of Cedric's fierce face and Allaric's desperate resolve stealing the words from my lips. They moved like dancers in a play, each thrust and parry punctuating the silent accusations hanging in the air. The battle raged on, shocking images flickered in my mind, their friendship, the feasts, the laughter that now felt like a cruel joke. It was more than just swords clinking, this was the heartbreak of lost camaraderie, the shadow of what once was. Each blow echoed Allaric's broken promises, twisting like a dagger in my heart. I felt the sting of tears biting at my eyelids, whispers of the crowd grew louder, questions swirling around. Who will win? Is this truly over a woman? I couldn't breathe. The chaos drew me in, surrounding me like a storm. Suddenly, a decisive clash sent both men sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped, and for a moment, silence enveloped the arena. Would this be the end? Would one of them rise? Yet, it was not the outcome that shocked me, but the sight beside Allaric, old, weathered man with a face lined by years of pain. A father? Or perhaps a forgotten guardian? He watched with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. Why was he here, and what secrets did he carry? My chest tightened further, the realization dawning heavy and unyielding. As I took a step toward her, yearning to understand, I felt an unseen force pulling me back. The tension swung like a pendulum, pregnant with possibility. The duel was one thing, but this was something darker. What had driven them to this point? I felt an urgent tug in my gut, pushing me closer to danger, and yet, I hesitated. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The silence was deafening, a heavy shroud cast over the arena that echoed the unrelenting ache lodged in my chest. Sir Allaric and Lord Cedric lay on the ground, their breath shallow and erratic. The sound of a sword clattering against the stone floor snapped me back to reality, forcing my gaze to return to Allaric. Her eyes darted between the two men, a tempest of emotions swirling within them. Was it remorse? Regret? Or something deeper, something that simmered just beneath the surface? My heart raced as I considered the figure beside her, the old man whose presence seemed to darken the very air around us. Elizabeth had spoken of him in hushed tones, calling him the Reaper of Dreams, a man said to bear witness to the consequences of unbridled ambition and love turned sour. I had dismissed such tales as mere folklore, yet here he was, tangible and real. The way he focused on the duel, his eyes hollow yet piercing, hinted at stories hidden beneath the skin of his decades. Why don't you intervene? I muttered beneath my breath, my voice trembling. My desperation surged as the weight of the confrontation pressed down upon me. Then, the unexpected happened. The crowd erupted in chaotic chatter, a mixture of cheers and anguished gasps as the two knights struggled to rise. And amidst that turmoil, a woman appeared from the shadows. She was a vision draped in a flowing gown that caught the light like a beacon. Her features were sharp, yet softened by kindness, and her approach was steady and purposeful. "Stop!" she cried, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The tournament-goers fell silent, as though they had been struck dumb by the power in her command. I recognized her from whispers of court gossip. All spoke of Lady Isolde, a healer whose prowess rivaled any knight's blade. She had saved countless lives, so the legend said, but what was left unsaid was her history, enmeshed in a love lost to the ravages of war. Had she come to mend the rift, or did she carry her own burden of sorrow? "Leave them be," she implored, stepping forward to shield the duelists from the crowd's prying eyes. "Their fate is not determined by violence, but by the choices we make. Look at them, can you not see the pain?" The murmurs rose again, ripening with confusion and curiosity. With every step she took toward Allaric and Cedric, I felt my resolve waver. Perhaps, beneath this urgent cacophony of anger and betrayal, there lay a sliver of hope. As she knelt down, I saw her fingers brush against the ground, steadying herself as she drew in a breath. "I once had a love that war tore away. Do not repeat my mistakes," she whispered, her gaze piercing through armor and pride into the depths of their souls. I felt the tension in the air shift, a possibility fluttering in the remnants of despair. Anger and confusion swirled in both knights' eyes. It was as if they were wrestling not just with her words, but with the memories of their brotherhood, the shared battles, the camaraderie that felt like a lifetime ago. I could see the moment when the fire of resentment flickered and began to sputter, but just as quickly, a shadow passed across Allaric's face, darkening the fragile truce. "Enough!" he roared, his voice booming through the arena, shaking those of us who stood watching. "You don't understand." He shot a glance at Allaric, whose face became a mask of pain, tears finally breaking free. "This isn't just about the duel, it is about everything we have lost. The love we wanted, the trust that has been shattered, and therein lay the truth among the ruins of our great passions. This was not just a quarrel over a woman who had walked between them like a ghost, it was a fight for redemption against the ghosts of their past." But just as I felt the tide of their conflict shift, a new figure emerged from the throng, a messenger, breathless and frantic. His face was pale, eyes widened with urgency. "A decree from the king," he announced, almost stumbling as he approached, clutching a parchment tight to his chest. "Everyone must assemble. There is news that will change everything." The air thickened once again as we all exchanged glances, uncertainty dancing across our faces like flames licking at a tender wound. Whatever the king had to say, I felt certain it would lay another layer of turmoil upon an already turbulent moment. And then, as if the universe had conspired against us, I met the old man's gaze once more. A flicker of recognition sparked within me, burning through the confusion. I knew him, though I could not place why. His mouth quirked into a wry smile, one that hinted at secrets held long in the shadows. Before I could engage, a bone-chilling scream erupted from the crowd, and I turned just in time to see Allaric stagger, clutching her throat, eyes wide with a strange kind of terror. The world collapsed around me, and with it, my emerging hope flickered like a dying candle. Suddenly, nothing made sense. The arena, filled with anticipation a moment ago, was now consumed by chaos and fear. A feeling of dread enveloped me, tilting the ground beneath our feet, as though all our destinies had twisted into a web that none of us could escape. What was happening? And what secrets lurked in the darkening corners of our hearts, threatening to unravel everything we held dear? As the crowd descended into a frenzy, their gasps and murmurs rising like a tide of confusion, the arena transformed into a theater of chaos. My heart raced, I felt the thrum of fear coursing through the gathered spectators like a palpable entity, encroaching upon my own fragile hope. Allaric, her face twisted in an expression of panic, was clutching her throat as if an unseen force barred her from drawing breath. That I rushed forward, weaving through the mass of bodies, fueled by an instinctual need to help her, to understand what this terrible twist of fate meant. Each step felt heavy, as if a weight I could not see pressed down upon my chest, forcing the air from my lungs. Allari's struggle appeared not just physical but deeply emotional, an agony that echoed the wounds festering among the knights. Lady Isolde had moved quickly, her own urgency apparent as she reached Allara first. "Breathe, my dear. Focus on my voice," she urged, her hands reaching out to steady the younger woman. It was strange how this woman, who had known heartbreak, now stood as a beacon of calm amidst the storm. How had she found herself here, so deeply entwined in the fates of those who bore the brunt of the battles fought in both heart and soul? The old man lingered at the edge of the arena, watching, his presence powerful and unsettling. Something in his gaze prompted me to ask myself who he truly was, a harbinger of doom or a wise sage burdened with secrets. The questions churned within me while Allara's struggle intensified, her cries mingling with the crowd's unease. "Someone fetch water." A voice called out, slicing through the cacophony, but in the chaos, few seemed to know where to turn, prompted by raw panic rather than reason. It was then that a small boy barefoot and trembling darted through the throng and crossed to me, his wide eyes like saucers. "I have some. My mother kept it for her ailments," he panted, clutching a small clay vessel, its surface worn smooth by time and in that moment, I reached down, taking the vessel from his hands as if it were the most precious treasure. "Thank you," I whispered, but the boy was already off, lost in the mass of the crowd. Surrounded by turmoil, this flash of kindness rooted me to the spot for an instant longer, allowing me to gather my composure. Amid the chaos, could even a small act of hope bloom? "Allara, listen to me," I urged, kneeling beside her as the lady healer poured a trickle of water into her mouth, urging her to sip slowly. "You are stronger than this. You must fight." My words were not simply meant for her, they were for myself, too, a desperate plea against the lurking shadows creeping into our hearts. Her eyes met mine, glistening with tears of vulnerability intermingled with fear, and something in that moment shifted. The wild panic in her gaze calmed, like the fragile easing of storm clouds, revealing the light that still resided within her. Blood trickled from her lips, an unsettling sight, and I wondered what sacrificial love had bound her to this chaotic heartache. That a collective gasp reverberated through the crowd as the knights, momentarily scorned by their own tumult, turned their eyes toward us, their battles forgotten in the shadow of Allara's plight. Allaric, the fiery spirit who had seemed indomitable, now looked undone, remorse morphing his fierce demeanor into uncertainty. "Do something." He barked at Isolde with desperation, as if she alone possessed the means to tether Allara from this vale of torment. Just then, the old man moved forward, yet it was not the healer who caught my eye, rather, it was the shimmer of something in the air around him, a pulse of energy, ancient and profound. "What choice will you make?" he murmured, his words directed at the unfolding crisis before us. "Every moment a choice. A choice to love or to lose. A choice to condemn or to forgive." I shivered under the weight of his gaze, each word suffused with meaning that curled around the edges of my mind. And in that moment, it felt as if the very fabric of our stories intertwined. Not one soul was exempt from the pain of what had been lost and the longing for what could still be. But before the air could thin, before Allara could summon her strength, the messenger was back, panting and wild-eyed amid the turmoil, clutching the parchment that felt like the weight of our fates. "The king demands to know who will stand against the ancient curse unleashed upon our lands." At that, uncertainty gripped their hearts once more, a wave of dread flooding over the once hopeful space. My breath caught as I recognized those old folklore tales entwining our present with the past. What was this curse? What more lay ahead? And as I turned to Allara, her strength waning, a horrifying realization dawned upon me. The choice, the curse, the love entangled within it all suddenly bore the weight of fate. "Allara!" I called desperately as her eyes fluttered shut, her body growing heavy against Lady Isolde. Panic surged through me, racing alongside the haunting words of the old man. In that instant, I knew the true battle was not just over love and loyalty but against destinies that were yet to be written. As darkness threatened to swallow her, a chilling question reverberated within me: had this unfolding tale turned not just a love story but into a tragedy etched upon our hearts? Would we find the strength to rewrite the ending? I could feel the weight of the decision pressing down upon me, heavy and insistent, as Allari's body lay still beside Lady Isolde. The crowd turned to me, eyes full of expectation and fear, awaiting a response from the shadows I had barely begun to grasp. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing the ancient stories of curses that spiraled into the very marrow of our existence. Who will stand against the ancient curse unleashed upon our lands? The messenger's voice rang in my ears, a relentless drumbeat reminding me of the urgency that enveloped us. It felt as though the universe was congealing into a point, a single moment of clarity amid the chaos that threatened to drown us. That I turned towards Allara, bent forward, mind racing. If this curse was intertwined with her soul, I couldn't let go on it now, not ever. What do we need to do? I asked Lady Isolde, my voice a trembling whisper in the maelstrom surrounding us. Isolde's brow furrowed, her gaze flitting between the healer's frantic efforts and the stunned faces of the crowd. We must uncover its roots, its origin. The stories have been lost through generations, but we must remember the truth, she replied, urgency rising in her tone. The curse thrives on despair, we must offer hope instead. But even as those words slipped from her lips, the despair pained my heart, clawing at it with a familiar ache, an enigmatic sorrow that seemed part of the very fabric of our being. I had not just watched helplessly as she fought the darkness, I had also witnessed the hope within her flicker like a candle flame amidst an unforgiving storm. Suddenly, a flicker of anger surged through me like fire. Someone has to take a stand. If the knights can't find their courage in this moment, then we must. I challenged, my voice firm. This is not just about Allara, it is about all of yous, about fighting for our lives and our truths. Allaric stepped forward, his expression wavering between doubt and purpose. We've been bred to fight and conquer, but not all battles are won with swords, nor can they be won with fury alone. We must find unity, for that will wield more power than steel ever could. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, but doubt clung heavily to the air as they exchanged glances, many clearly struggling with the weight that history and destiny had burdened them with. Yet I saw a flicker of determination ignite in others, the flames of hope stirred, precious and fragile. Can you trust me? I implored, locking eyes with Allaric. For a heartbeat, I felt the spark of possibility shift the tone in the air. Can we remember together, not just the despair that has befallen us, but the stories that thrive on love? But before he could respond, the old man took a step forward. His presence commanded attention, urging an unexpected stillness upon the tumult around us. True bonds forge in love but are tested in the fires of hardship. The curse you face was woven into the very hearts of your predecessors. It feasts on your doubts, your fears. To defy it, you must unravel its threads. His words were a whisper yet struck me with disarming force. He had spoken of risks, and amid the growing understanding of our plight, I grasped the truth. Every whispered possibility we sought, every chance of success would require a sacrifice. Allara's breath hitched beside me, her eyelids barely fluttering, yet I could see the strength struggling to breach the fog of her unconsciousness. I felt the pull of a decision deep within me. I will search for the truth behind the curse, I declared, voice unwavering as I stepped into the center of the uncertainty that bound us all. United, we will face this with open hearts and a determination born not from despair but from our unyielding hope. As the words slipped from my lips, a surge of warmth radiated through the crowd, a moment shared like a breath amidst the chaos. With tentative hope, voices began to rise in affirmation, binding together in a growing chorus against the darkness that loomed, but before the tide of hope could swell to victory, a horrendous shudder rippled through the arena. A low wail erupted, sending tremors of unthinkable dread surging through me. The old man's eyes widened in recognition as he turned his fixed gaze towards the horizon, where a dark cloud twisted, unfurling its strength like a predatory beast. The curse is awakening. He roared, his voice breaking through the gathering din. Panic erupted anew, a beast that fed off our fears, and as I looked back to Allara, the fragile warmth still lingering in her eyes, my own heart seized at the transparency of the threads we were tied to. I realized that the path ahead was rife with peril, both for her and for us all. Could we summon the strength to confront the shadows poised to consume us? In that moment of despair and possibility intertwining irrevocably, an unexpected truth struck hard. Love mattered not just in its promises but in its ability to fuel our fight, a light to guide us through the ominous darkness that awaited. The murmur of the crowd turned into a cacophony of fear, panic clawing at their throats. As shadows crept across the once vibrant expanse of our gathering, I could feel the weight of the curse hanging over us, an ominous cloud that fed on our uncertainty. Everywhere I looked, faces twisted in anguish reflected the internal struggle like shards of glass, sharp and painful. Allaric. I cried out, breaking through the rising tumult. Her name slipped from my mouth like a desperate prayer, but she remained still, her fragile form seemingly untouched by the storm that raged around us. I reached for her hand, squeezing gently, willing her to respond. "Stay with me." The pulse of our joined hearts felt like an anchor in the swell of despair. It seemed as though time froze for a moment, the world contracting to the two of us surrounded by chaos. "You can't leave me," I whispered, my voice a mere thread in the winds of uncertainty. In that intimate silence, a glimmer flickered back to life, though it was more an instinct than a clear though tan instinct that the fight for her could also be a fight for all of us. The old man's voice cut through the muddle of sounds. "We must not go quietly into the dark, we must reignite the flames of our ancestors." He gestured with trembling hands, calling forth a spirit of defiance that hung between us and the encroaching darkness. His words bore the weight of years, yet they ignited unseen embers within our hearts. Amidst the fear, a young girl stepped forward from the crowd, clutching a crude wooden doll. Her face, sullied with dirt and streaked with tears, shone with an unexpected purity. "If we remember the stories, then we remember the love," she declared, the echo of her childlike belief ringing clear above the tumult. "Love is stronger than the shadows." Her bravery struck a chord deep within me. I turned to address the crowd, my heart racing. She is right. Stories are the lifeblood of our people, woven through generations. Without them, without love, we are but shells, lost to despair. Unity began to shift within the crowd, a sense of hope igniting the darkness momentarily threatening to consume us. Then the tremors returned, crashing through my resolve just as quickly. Ribbons of darkness writhed at the edges of our vision, a reminder that the curse had not retreated. The wind howled past us, swirling with the scent of earth and decay, a languid breeze that felt alive with malice. "Fetch me the tome," I commanded, my voice rising above the fear. Lady Isolde spoke of forgotten truths. "If the scrolls can reveal the origin of this curse," a figure appeared from the fringes, breathless but determined. Elda, the village's elusive seamstress, approached with her arms weighed down by shadows and whispers. "You seek the truth," she said, eyes alight with something indefinable. "But beware, for the truths often bear scars, they glimpse into the pain that shaped our past." I've cherished the tome, knowing it contains more than just impossibilities. It holds our histories and our losses. "Bring it," I urged, knowing that even the sorrows of our ancestors might hold the key to our hope. As the tome was passed to me, the weight of the leather-bound book felt both heavy and purposeful in my hands. I shattered the seal, the ancient page curling like hesitant breaths unfurling into light. I could see images of battles past dance upon its pages, stories of love and loss intertwining through generations, the very essence of sacrifice. Just then, from deep within the shadows of the forest, a piercing scream tore through the air, a cry that sent shivers coursing down my spine. The neighboring villages had fled from the encroaching darkness, and they were now scattered and desperate. "They're coming!" someone shouted, the urgency crystallizing and breaking the moment that bound us to our collective hope. The crowd erupted in chaos, panic blooming anew like a wildfire. I struggled to maintain my footing amidst the noise. "We have to stay together," I shouted, desperation flooding my voice. "If we allow fear to separate us, we lose our way. The curse feeds on this disarray." As I searched the crowd, I caught sight of Allaric pushing his way through, determination carving his features. "We must form ranks," he called, grounding himself in the moment. "If we are to stand a chance, we need to protect ourselves together." suddenly, a jarring transformation ripped through the crowd, as if the very realm had torn apart. Eyes that once brimmed with uncertainty now glimmered with an abundance of bravery. Edda extended her small fingers, and nearby villagers began to join hands, forming a chain of solidarity. Together, we shouldered the weight of fear, and hope began to swell beneath it. Yet, as the figures approached from the shadows, I felt a chilling recognition. One figure emerged from the darkness, cloaked and ominous, face obscured but familiar. Fallen, I breathed, a twist of fate tying my heart in knots. The darkness bore the face of someone I never imagined would return, someone whose existence hung suspended at the edges of our shared histories. The ring of hands tightened, and I steadied myself against this unexpected revelation. As the curse loomed overhead, fueled by our fears, I realized with an overwhelming sense of dread what this meant. The past had come alive. Shadows were no mere specters, but belonged to the remnants of those we cherished and lost. With the curse awakening, tethered by so many wounds unhealed, the call for love became fiercer than the desperation of despair. Yet, as I glanced at Allaric, still lying vulnerable, another realization pierced my heart. To uncover the truth of our shared history, we must embrace the painful pieces we had tried to forget. That was our only hope, but at what cost? The shadows pressed closer, a wrathful tide licking at our feet as the figure emerged fully, the cloak swirling around their form like smoke. My heart raced as I fought to reconcile the past with this terrifying present. The memories surged unbidden, flooding my thoughts. Laughter shared on sunlit afternoons, the warmth of voices in the evening glow, the lightest touch of a hand that had once soothed my troubled dreams. Fallen, I muttered again, my voice trembling on the edge of recognition. Why have you returned? The figure remained still for a heartbeat, and then the hood slipped back, revealing a face I had long mourned. Harlan, my brother, long thought lost to the shadows that claimed so many souls. My breath caught, a tempest of grief and joy swirling within me. You should have been free, I managed, emotions clawing at my chest with a vicious longing that I was never free. Harlan's voice emerged, low and thick with sorrow. The curse binds us all. It took my life and my heart, and now it seeks to reclaim us again. He raised his hand, pointing toward Allaric, who remained oblivious to the brewing storm around her, a stark contrast to our shared unfolding chaos. The crowd gasped as the once flickering light of hope faltered, the reality of our past bearing down on us with chilling ferocity. He speaks the truth. Elda's voice echoed from behind me, as she emerged from the throng, her eyes wide. The darkness we face is not merely a creature of this day but a collection of the shadows we have cast upon ourselves. No. I yelled, clenching my fists as despair tightened its grip on my throat. I could feel the collective fear of the villagers around me, a precarious bond straining under the weight of our history. We cannot lose hope now, not even in the face of our past. But as Harlan stepped closer, something shifted in the air. I could see the flickers of sorrow in my villagers' gazes, their memories intertwining with mine, the whispers of lost loved ones igniting the embers of despair. Your bravery once hid you from the truth, Harlan continued, his voice rising with the darkness that flared anew. But if we are to reclaim our love, we must face the very wounds that tear us apart. You cannot hide from what has already consumed your heart. Every word cut deeper than the last, resonating with each thread of grief that bound our fates together. Just as darkness sought to pull us apart, there was an undercurrent of understanding beginning to circulate through the crowd. I could see it then, people exchanging glances, recalling the loved ones they had lost. In that moment, a small voice broke through the thickening tension. The girl with the wooden doll stepped forward once again, her hands trembling but resolute. We can't change the past. But we can tell our stories. Remember the ones we lost, and we can face the shadows together. Her innocence ignited a glimmer of hope, reminding us that while the past was etched in our souls, there was still a spark amidst the darkness. I stepped forward, gripping the tome tightly as I raised my voice above the gathering storm. Gather your memories, the stories of love and loss, and let us breathe life into them. We cannot let the curse consume us when we can ignite our crowded hearts. With those words, something shifted not just within me, but amongst us all. The hands that held each other began to steady, and I felt the whispers of courage ripple through the crowd. One by one, voices rose from the depths of uncertainty, recounting tales of cherished moments, of laughter echoing off the walls, of love that outlasted time itself, but just as we began to weave a tapestry stronger than fear, a crackling sound tore through the latent hope, announcing the arrival of the dark forces closing in. The world began to swirl once more with the chaos of menacing shadows, flesh and despair converging upon us. That I caught Harlan's eyes, and a wave of recognition passed between use and awareness that the time we faced was not just for the living, but also to seek redemption for the lost. Together, we can unveil the truth. I shouted, but a deeper fear burrowed beneath the surface. Was Harlan truly at my side, or was he another specter, woven into the curse that had shackled our lives? An ominous laugh echoed around us as the cloaked figures drew closer, and I felt a chill creeping forward. "Fallen, you cannot hide from your past," resonated a voice that sent shivers through my bones. "You belong to us now. And time is running out." The stakes rose with the shadows, and with each heartbeat, I could feel the fragile thread of our unity quivering dangerously. Our collective courage hung by the thinnest filament, an emotional cliffhanger dangling over the abyss filled with pain and reclaimed histories. In that moment, as I met Harlan's haunting gaze, profound questions bloomed in the depths of my heart. Would our stories weave a shield against the darkness? Or would they unravel bonds forged with anguish, exposing fresh wounds that may never heal? As the shadows lunged, I could only whisper a prayer. Would love be our salvation or our damnation? The shadows circled around us, their movements reminiscent of predators stalking their prey, each pulse of dark energy molding the tension into something palpable, something that threatened to strangle the voices that dared rise against the encroaching despair. "Gather your stories, remember those we have lost," I repeated, louder this time, drawing every ounce of energy from the sparks of hope ignited by the little girl. The villagers hesitated, their eyes wide with fear, but the flicker of defiance sparked anew at the base of their hearts, knitting courage into the very fabric of our failing reality. "That's it. Speak their names," Elda encouraged, her voice steady as she clasped the hands of those beside her. It was a simple action, but it was like lighting a candle against the impending storm, the warmth spreading, igniting embers where once there had only been ash. "Aliana." A man's voice broke through the dim air. His face a mask of lost hope, twisted in pain but suffused with power as he summoned memories of his beloved. I remember her laughter, the way it danced with the stars. It kept the night at bay. One by one, whispers turned into shouts as faces turned to each other, reconnecting through grief-rooted stories threaded with love's warmth. Each name spoken was a brick laid against the wall of darkness, every memory a bulwark reinforcing the thin tendrils of hope sprouting from our entwined fates. And yet, even as we reclaimed lost voices, an echo of Harlan's warnings thundered in my mind. Were demons lying in wait in the very words that united us? "Felice, my sister," an older woman cried, the name tumbling from her lips like a clarion call. Her tear-streaked face shone with newfound resolve. She was the light in my darkest days. We could face the shadows, together, if we only remembered her strength. I watched as faces transformed, draining the pallor of fear and injecting vibrancy into their souls. Yet, my body thrummed with an inconsolable weight, the pressing uncertainty of whether the shadows lurking at the edge of our unity were alive and scheming. I caught Harlan's eye again, finding both comfort and dread there, hovering in the balance of history and hope, but just as the crowd surged with life, shambling dark forms began to close in, wisps of shadowy sinew and contorted whispers that coiled dangerously close, grasping for our fragile tapestry of resilience. I could taste their essence upon the wind, bitter and cold, dragging dread from the depths of my heart. "Fallen, you can't escape the truth," the shadow that hovered nearest hissed, its voice a treacherous melody that reverberated in my bones. "What you've woven is naught but a ruse, a flimsy ploy to shield yourselves from the truth of your failings. No. I shouted, though my heart thudded an anxious reply. I clawed at the waves of fear, rippling through the crowd anew. "You will not fracture us. We stand together." A roar of defiance surged forth, and I could feel the air shift as steadfast hearts solidified around words of lost memories, entwining into intricate patterns like threads in a fellowship quilt. Yet, doubt clawed at the edges, demanding to understand, were we simply tying ourselves to the ultimate darkness, destined to become the very next names lost to its hungry maw? As I reached for Harlan, my gut twisted with primal fear. What if he is bound to them? What if he is the embodiment of our defeat, fallen, do you not see? Harlan leaned towards me, agony spanning across his features. The shadows seek to ensnare our love in terror. We must embrace the hurt within us, or we risk letting it consume us entirely. The crowd surged together again, hearts and voices sinking with intensity, an unyielding chorus of bittersweet love and loss. But before I could absorb this strange amalgamation of power and uncertainty, the figures lurched forward in a synchronized rush. Now. One of the shadows yelled, and a visceral scream wrestled through me. The world around us dimmed as an icy grip wrapped around my heart. I swayed, unbalanced, suddenly unmoored in a cacophony of emotions. Colliding the desperation of love, the weight of grief, and then there it was, a spark of blue light flaring suddenly in my palm, igniting with memory and metal. Surrounding me, the villagers began to glow as well, fragments of their essence knitting into a protective barrier against the grasping shadows. Yet, amidst this burgeoning strength, the shadows laughed, a guttural, menacing sound that reverberated through my heart. You think you can shield yourselves with memories? With love? The encroaching darkness rolled forward like a flood, seeking to drown us all, and in that moment, clarity sliced through the chaos. Harlan was not merely a specter but a living connection, a conduit of ancient ties forged from loss. If we were ever to understand ourselves tonight, as wounds were laid bare, we had to delve into the darkness he represented, not just to reclaim lost love but to face the very shadows that had driven it away. With that resolution pounding in my chest, we braced for the incoming storm, a union of broken souls clutching to all that had ever mattered, as shadows drew ever closer, their hands clawing toward their shared prey. But could love withstand the very darkness that threatened to consume us? And then, it happened, a shout from the unknown, a revelation that rippled from the shadows like thunder. You will learn. You will all learn that what you fear most, lies within you. The menacing laughter echoed like an unsettling prophecy, cascading over our hearts like a freezing mist, leaving us teetering on the precipice of dread and courage, our hearts propelled forward into an emotional abyss as the shadows advanced. Would we sustain the courage to face the truth that awaited us, or would our love unravel beneath the weight of our spectral past? As the swirling darkness cloaked our reality once more, I could only hold on tight, knowing that the ultimate battle was fast approaching, and all we had to guide us were the remembrances of those we had loved and lost. With the shadows looming ever closer, a palpable tension hung in the air, constricting around me like a noose drawing tighter with each breath. The faces of the villagers glimmered faintly in the dim light, their eyes reflecting valiance and despair intermingled, entrenched in the heart of a storm we had unknowingly summoned. It was in that fragile moment, standing at the edge of annihilation and unity, I began to realize that every heartbeat echoing around me was a promise of resilience etched into the marrow of our beings, but also a desperate reminder that the spark we clung to might just as easily be extinguished. Remember. Elda's voice rang out above the impending darkness, slicing through my haze of fear. Remember why we fight. Her eyes shone with an unwavering resolve, and her sincerity pierced through the shadows wrapping around my heart that I felt it then, each name we had spoken, their spirits enveloping us like a warm embrace, entwining with our fears and hopes alike. It was a tapestry woven with care, mingling threads of sorrow and joy, and even more potent now, it was our lifeline. Aliana, Felice, every name passed through our lips. A collective chant began, an incantation rooted deep in grief and love. We are their remembrance. We are their resolve. Yet, even as the words took flight, the shadows surged like a tide, clawing at the edges of our cries. I remembered Harlan's solemn warning about the duality of our memories. Every joyous recollection risked unearthing the deepest recesses of our sorrow. The laughter of Aliana might summon whispers of despair at her absence, the warmth of Felice's spirit could conjure the bitter chill of finality. Gaze fixed on the encroaching shadows, I stepped forward, taking a deep breath to gather my thoughts and my courage. We cannot let them take what we've built here, not now when we are finally remembering who we are. My voice trembled yet rang with purpose, a beacon amid the encroaching darkness, but as I spoke, a chilling realization snaked through me. Our memories might bind us together, but they also risked unearthing the shadows buried within. What would happen if we were confronted with our own failures, our own regrets? Would the bonds of love break under the weight of our truths? A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and menacing, shrouded in a cloak that flickered like candlelight in a storm. "You are all fools," it declared with a voice laced in disdain. "You cling to the glimmers of your past, but those are mere illusions. You fear what you've lost, not what lies within." A pang of dread lodged in my throat as I confronted the Baina visage I felt I recognized. "Who are you?" I called out, challenging the specter's jeer. "Ah, but I am no one and I am everyone," it taunted, the form pulsating with the chaotic energy of our memories. "You know me well, Fallen, for every regret you've buried, every laugh that turns to tears, I embodied at it was a shadow steeped in losses I thought buried, and with each heartbeat, I felt the weight of the truths I'd long evaded rise to the surface. You are the fears we refuse to speak of," I whispered, the revelation drawing me in as if I were locked in a dance with my own insecurities. "Yes." The shadow hissed, relishing in the absolute doubt forming in the corners of my heart. "Embrace it. Each name you utter binds you to your fears, lays bare what you've hidden under layers of time. What will you do when you dare to remember why you lost them?" the villagers faltered, hesitation rippling through our gathered strength. But just as despair threatened to swallow us whole, a small voice broke through the thick black fog. My brother, a young girl, stepped forward, her little hand clutching a painted rock inscribed with love, an offering to the gods of remembrance and connection. My brother loved the stars. He said they kept our secrets safe. He never wanted me to cry for him. He'd want me to smile. Her words were like glass shattering through the darkness, each syllable a pinpoint of luminous truth that ignited the breath of hope deep within the crowd. With her innocent earnestness echoing in my heart, I could see its fleeting tendrils of light edging through the cracks in our despair. "This is it," I shouted, warmth propelling me forward. "In our pain, we also find strength. In facing what we've lost, we reclaim our love. We are still here." The shadows recoiled, yet I could feel their cold tendrils grasping for the hope that flickered in the faces around me. And for every unkind word they hissed, we responded with a shared name, the stories of joy laced with sorrow providing warmth against the encroachment of darkness. Yet even as we wove deeper into our shared history, I could feel the ground beneath us shifting. One by one, the villagers began to glow brighter, their stories merging into a singular beacon, our history unbreakable. But the shadows were not finished. I could sense their thrumming energy surge, shifting the tide against us. "Fallen," Harlan appeared at my side, desperation piercing through his unwavering demeanor. "There is something you do not yet see. The darkness is a reflection, every fear you face is a step toward understanding. But there's one truth you carry hidden from view. If you uncover it, it could shatter everything." Before I could grasp the enormity of his words, the sinister figure lunged forward, and a rift opened beneath a swirling abyss beckoning. With a sudden tugging sensation, I fell through the crack, the winds of despair pulling me down. As I plummeted into the depths, the last thing I heard was the echoes of the villagers' cries mingling with that unsettling laughter. "You will learn, Fallen, you will all learn." Darkness enveloped me entirely, and with it came a rush of cold clarity. The truth promised to reveal itself, but I was suspended in a terrifying void, utterly alone, teetering on the brink of an emotional revelation that could change everything about who I thought I was. Would I possess the courage to dig deeper, or would I succumb to the shadows I had feared for so long? The descent through the dark void felt endless, a weightless spiral of confusion and dread. I reached out, grasping at the intangible, desperate to anchor myself in something familiar. Memories swirled like autumn leaves caught in a storm, flickers of laughter blended with echoes of loss, the faces of those I had loved and lost swimming before my eyes. With a sudden jolt, I landed in a dimly lit chamber. The air was thick with an inexplicable heaviness, and a kaleidoscope of light filtered through a cracked ceiling, illuminating fragments of what appeared to be old leather-bound tomes. Each book was etched with names, dates, and the delicate hand of stories left untold. I stumbled back, realizing these were the histories of my villagers, intertwined with my own tales of hope crushed beneath despair and the inevitability of loss. As I brushed my fingers against the spines, a brittle parchment fell loose, fluttering softly to the ground. I picked it up and read the faded ink, "In memory of Alistair, who dreamed of a world where shadows could not reach us. My heart ached in recognition, the name ringing like a bell deep within me. He had been my confidant, my first love, lost to the very darkness that now sought to consume us, but the shadows flickered nearby, their malevolent energy coiling and tightening around the edges of the room. Beneath the veil of sorrow, I felt the pulse of something else, a flicker of light in the depths of despair, urging me to rise and confront this darkness. Ignoring the icy sensation creeping up my spine, I pressed onward, guided by the delicate glow of hope igniting within me. With each step, more names whispered to me from the books, their stories unraveling as if the very fabric of the village's soul was being laid bare. Marina, who danced among the fireflies. A burst of laughter erupted in my mind, mingling with a cool breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers, reminding me that amidst the chaos, there had also been beauty. For every flicker of grief, there was also a flame of love. I understood now. This journey demanded more than remembrance. It called for reconciling the joy with the sorrow, embracing the full spectrum of our existence. Suddenly, a flickering image materialized before me, a vision of Alistair standing under a starlit sky, his laughter ringing clear, echoing the girl's earlier words. "Do not let the shadows define you," he said, his voice resonating deep within me. "We are the sum of our memories, both light and dark. You must confront what you fear most to truly embrace what you love. Our hope lives in the hearts of those we love, but it can only grow when we face the truth of what we've lost." His figure shimmered before vanishing into tendrils of light. His words left behind an ache in my heart, a fierce reminder that even though Alistair was not physically present, he would always remain a part of my story. I understood. The journey must not only honor the past but also forge a path forward. With renewed determination, I found myself drawn to the center of the chamber, where a heavy wooden altar stood, laden with artifacts of our shared histories, tokens of love and loss. I reached out and placed my hands on the altar, feeling the pulse of energy beneath the surface. The shadows closed in around me, their whispers growing louder, attempting to drown out the inner resolve I had begun to cultivate. "You think you can overcome us?" A chilling voice slithered through the room. "Every name you unveil will bring forth your heaviest burdens. You will grovel in grief until you remember why you lost them in the first place." The darkness surged, waves crashing against the fragile barrier I was trying to build, and doubt seeped into my mind. Memories of my failures and shortcomings clawed at me like ravenous beasts. I could feel the weight of every moment I had taken for granted, every chance I had failed to seize. The spectral face of Harlan momentarily flickered into view, his expression filled with urgent warning. "Reveal the truth, fallen. Find the shadow buried within you." Taking a deep breath, I closed my eyes, allowing the emotional weight of those memories to wash over me. Each feeling, each anguished moment, began to layer into a vivid tapestry, a mural depicting the fragility of human connections. I invoked each name and every story spoken amidst the villagers' remembrance. I felt the rise and swell of their power encircling me, a community bound not only by love but shared struggle. Then, a pivotal moment crystallized within Meth Day. I turned away from Alistair as he reached out, fearful of losing him. The rejection had thrummed through me with a potency that reverberated across the years. I had buried it, thinking that running from my fear of loss would shield my heart. But in doing so, I had inadvertently thrust us both further into the shadows. That I opened my eyes, the memory burning in my heart not as a thorn, but as a call to arms. I embrace my pain, my regret. I embrace the love that came before. I shouted, the echoes bouncing off the chamber's walls, rallying against the darkness that surged around me. The shadows recoiled but then retaliated, swirling ferociously in an attempt to drown out my voice. Yet, with each name I uttered, each promise of remembrance, the darkness began to tremble and fade. "This isn't just my story," I called out, the shadows raging against my declaration, but I stood unwavering, buoyed by my connection to the villagers. "It's ours, intertwined, a tapestry of grief and love." I refused to hide any longer. Just as the shadows began to recede, a new reality twisted into being before me, and I found myself back at the precipice of the abyss from which I had fallen. Above me, the sound of the villagers' united chants clawed at the errant invocation of strength echoing through the dark mist. But the sinister figure loomed ever closer, claws outstretched, intent on dragging me back into the depths of despair. Do you truly believe this? You are but a flicker in the vastness of your own failures. It snarled. No. I am the light forged through love. And I will not be extinguished. The moment hung suspended, the balance wavering precariously. Just as I thought I might succumb to the pull of darkness, I caught a glimmer of something falling from the sky, a radiant light, a tear of luminescent energy that exploded into myriad fragments, filling the air like fireflies, and then I felt it. A piece of me I had long believed lost, floating back to the surface. Joy, grief, hope, all of it manifested into a stunning brilliance. With a roar, the darkness recoiled as the light surged, each piece of remembrance reversing the shadow's grip. But in that explosion of light, one singular truth rose to the forefront, a name that had been painfully enshrined within my heart. The light dimmed briefly, revealing the one final truth I had buried deep. It was a revelation I hadn't prepared for, a name that would shatter the very foundation of all I believed. Elda, I gasped, the realization crashing into me like a tidal wave. Elda wasn't just a villager, she was tied to my past, connected by a deeper bond one had repressed. The very thought clawed at me, forcing me to confront the painful reality that she was not merely a comrade but was, in essence, a piece of my unspoken truth. The shadows lurked, their laughter a chilling reminder that while this battle might have turned the tide, the confrontation had only just begun. And as the light surged once more, a renewed determination engulfed me, for I knew now I had to face not just the darkness threatening us, but the weight of a love I had yet to confront, and how it would reshape everything we knew as we stood at the brink of an unforgiving battle. The world around me grew heavy with the silence that followed that heartbreaking revelation. Elda's name echoed in my heart, a tether to a truth I had kept hidden, two worlds intersecting in a dizzying dance of love and regret that threatened to consume me whole. The shadows recoiled, but I stood firm, holding on to the reasons why we fought, the faces that burned in our memories weaving their way back into clarity. Elda, I breathed, the name a sacrament, my sister. The essence of our bond surged through me, a current of warmth that conquered the chill the shadows sought to claim. Our stories intertwine, not just in love but in sacrifice. I see now what I could not before, the heart that has forever battered against the walls of my fear. The darkness writhed around me, a storm that grew tumultuous as the essence of Elda combined with the warm glow of the village's shared strength. You believe love can conquer all? The shadow hissed, the confidence faltering in its voice. What of the failures? What of the loss? Yes, I cried, my voice rising in defiance. Those failures can bend us, but they do not define us. We are not simply shadows of our past, we are echoes of every life lived, every heart we hold dear. Each word fell heavy like a stone, impactful and resolute, sparking glimmers of light in the darkness that encircled us. As I spoke, the radiance erupted from within, wrapping around the memories we had shared, those moments of laughter, the sound of shared tears, the embrace of hands held in prayer during the darkest nights. Bring it forth! I shouted, channeling the anguish and love entwined in the memory of Elda, but also in every soul we had lost. Let us face our truth together. A symphony of voices arose from the depths of the shadows, villagers stepping forward to add their stories to the power growing between us, their light reflecting into the depths of my heart. Marina, Allaric, Felice, each name breathed vitality into the air. The darkness thinned, unraveling at the edges as the warmth of our shared remembrance knitted itself into a palpable shield, yet, just when I thought we had won against the shadows, the sinister figure snarled, lunging at me with a ferocious rage that seemed to steal the breath of the gathered crowd. You think these tales will shield you? Its voice slashed through the air. You are but a single flame against the encroaching night, but in that moment of desperation, clarity washed through me like a winter breeze. Every face I had seen and every hand I had held echoed a promise back to me. Together. I called out, urging the villagers to reaffirm their bond, to fight not just as individuals but as a tapestry of interwoven strength. The light expanded, blooming like a field of wildflowers, igniting every fissure in the darkness that dared encroach upon us. As the power surged, shadows began to convulse and twist in protest, shrieking as if the brightness scalded them. Then, as we held fast through the rising storm, the energy exploded outward, a luminous wave of hope crashing against the shadows, drawing together every frayed thread until the tapestry of life became a formidable shield. And in the midst of that light, I witnessed Elda step into view, a vision of strength and vulnerability, holding her hands high as if weaving a spell to bridge our memories with newfound resolve. "Remember me. Remember our love," she declared, her voice resonating with a certainty that struck the heart of every shadow, crucifying its hold upon our fates. "Though we are lost to memory, we live through love undaunted, unbowed. Love will keep our stories alive." And then, the spells of loss were broken, the shadows swirled and dissolved, and their hollow laughter fell silent, for an undeniable truth ruptured through the despair. Love not only existed in the smiles and laughter but in acceptance, in forgiveness of self, in facing our truths and acknowledging that pain would not extinguish hope. As the darkness receded, I felt the pulse of clarity beneath my skin. The shared burdens had no power over us unless we gave them. "Wait. Elda, my sister." I wept, stepping towards her, the two of us surrounded by the warmth of our village's swirling embrace. "Forgive me for the shadows of neglect. For every moment I turned from you. I understand now. You were never lost. We had to face our fears to uncover the power of our remembrance." She stepped closer, and we fell into an embrace that anchored me in the ethereal light. "Together we rise, together we strive," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with a mix of love and understanding. At that moment, I felt the memories wash over us like a tide, spiraling and weaving old wounds into new beginnings. I understood now that the pain was not a detractor, it was a vital part of life's journey, its lessons fondly etched into our souls like the paths of ancient travelers. As breath returned to the arena, it became clear that the past was a prism, reflecting shards of hope amidst the pain. I turned and faced those gathered. We stood together, not as isolated souls but the embodiment of a legacy filled with love, determination, and resilience. The echoes of our laughter filled the air like a melody that chased away the shadows. "This is who we are," I declared, stepping forward, a fervent passion igniting my spirit, "and we will not let the past dictate our fate. We are the light unveiling our truths, and we will honor those whose names have been lost within the folds of our stories." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, its amber rays infusing the arena with a warm glow, I saw the faces of those I loved reflected in the twilight, their strength the product of shared sacrifice and unconditional acceptances. We were connected now, unbroken by shadows, a tapestry of vibrant souls embracing both loss and love. In that vast, lingering moment, it was clear, love is not merely an act of passion but an ancient thread of kindness that binds us all across time. Then, with one last breath, I whispered into the heart of the twilight, "And I will never forget." And so we stood, hand in hand, the promise of tomorrow lighting our path, a collective heartbeat echoing into the night, integrating our stories into the infinite tapestry of existence, reminding us that in the midst of loss, love would always endure.